my name is Sherley.
And I'm Brandy.
And welcome back to Unspoken Transitions, where we talk about the nuances of adulthood and the challenges that arise that people don't really talk about.
I cannot believe it's season 5 already.
No facts.
You've been doing this for a minute though.
I have.
Season 5.
But still, I just appreciate the fact that you hopped on and you've been a great co-host and just bringing more perspective and energy into the space. But starting in 2020, it being season 5 just sounds insane to me.
It's insane. We missed y'all.
No, for
you
real.
missed us too. It's been so long since we actually sat down and recorded too. So.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
But the break was definitely necessary. You gotta breathe, revamp, and not rush into things, because that's how you produce kind of nonsense.
Rush content, yeah. No, for sure. But we're excited to be back, y'all.
No, for real. And we have so much in store and so many things ready for this season. We came ready and prepared this season, so we're just excited.
Yes, so definitely stay tuned, follow our social media platforms, all of that stuff. But today's episode, we were we gotta start out with a banger.
No facts.
And this topic might be a little controversial, what we talk about, but let's get right into it. So today we are talking about breakups, not necessarily how to heal from them quite yet, but just how many breakups are happening, how do you decide when it's time to break up with somebody and just call it quits, rekindling things with potential people that you broke up with. So yeah, let's jump right in.
Let's jump into it. So
yeah,
like Brandy said, everyone is breaking up or getting divorced, and it's honestly kind of crazy to me. The one that stood out to me when I heard that Tiana Taylor and her man, I don't know her man's name, when I heard that they were not going to be together, I was just wait, what? When I always saw them, even clips from their show and everything, I was oh my gosh, this is the picture perfect family, they love each other, so on and so forth. So that kind of broke my heart. I was oh my gosh. But do you know the details behind why they're getting divorced and everything? Because I didn't look into it personally.
I don't think she shared the details, but they did the generic kind of Instagram post to let everyone know, because I feel at that status everyone is so invested in your relationship.
That's
you can't not say something.
You have to.
You have to say something. But I think she kept it very brief, and I think she was specifically it's not infidelity.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's probably irreconcilable differences, or
that's a good, you know what,
like that.
That's a good thing. I like when it's, I don't like that they got a divorce, but I like when it's okay, things are kind of not working out between us and we're gonna separate, rather than for example, oh wait, no, Joe Jonas and his part, that's another subject.
No, there's I have a whole list. There's Iman and Tiana, there's Jeannie Mai and Jeezy. That one threw me for
Who are they?
So she was from The Real, and Jeezy is Jeezy the rapper.
Nah.
Yeah, you would know him if you saw him. I know you.
You sure?
Yeah.
I'm really not good with celebrities.
Yes, I'm trying to think. What song does he sing?
Young Jeezy?
Was he Young Jeezy when he was young?
I don't know.
I just know him as Jeezy now, but Joe Jonas, Sophia, Rosalia, and I forget his name, but she's a big Latin pop star.
What's Rosalia?
Rosalia?
I don't know.
You know Rosalia. She's in the Latin music world. You would know her if you saw her. There's just so many people that are breaking up. Yeah. Mark Braxton.
Yeah, that one too. I was oh my gosh.
It's just all happening at once, and it's overwhelming to think about, because I feel social media is such a big factor in how people, it influences how people live their lives. So I wonder if these breakups are making people second guess, hey, is my relationship not what it is?
Yeah. Especially because it's secure relationships. There's some relationships people get into as celebrities. If they break up, they're on and off. I'm kind of whatever. For example, Ariana Grande and her husband. It doesn't even surprise me because there's a whole other, but
listen,
it doesn't surprise me because she's been on and off with breakups for who knows how long, never stuck with anybody, always ready to get married, always ready to get engaged and stuff like that right after breaking up with somebody else. So for her, it doesn't really surprise me. I personally would not put her relationship on a pedestal because of just the patterns I've seen in the past. But for example, Tiana Taylor and Iman, or I'm trying to think of what was it? Viola Davis, if her and her husband divorced, I would have been
shook.
Yeah, I would have been shook. there's some people, or like, let's say, God forbid, I don't even like saying this, but like Obama and his wife, like things like that, like that would freak me out.
Yeah, that would be like very, because like you're so invested in the relationship and you've seen it evolve and grow. Like you feel like you know them, even though we don't know them personally. People share so much that you feel like you're rooting for them.
Yes.
You're like, I want y'all to win. So it is disappointing when it doesn't end up working out.
Exactly. Yeah. It's better to hear that it's kind of like a miscommunication, but also too, I think that might bring in doubt, like you said, doubts in relationships, because it's just like, wait, are we good now, but maybe 10 years from now when we're older it doesn't work. So I think it's an important thing to talk about, just because like I think everyone should strive to grow together. And I think sometimes maybe celebrities with their busyness and like just their lives, they don't spend enough time like bonding with one another, and maybe they just assume that like, oh yeah, you know, things have been good, they're always have been good, but like things never get discussed, maybe just because of the busyness of like being a celebrity. But all in all, it still like shocks me when secure relationships break up, because it's like, all right, I put you on a pedestal but you're not together.
I know, it's like heartbreaking to watch it. But do you think that a lot of men are the ones that are initiating the breakups, or do you feel like it's more so the women? Because I think that's very controversial in itself, where people think it's more the men that kind of are having these standards as opposed to women. Like, what do you think?
I think these days it also could just be like my social media feed and stuff like that. These days I think that it is the woman, because when people always talk about their perspectives, or even what it was like a generation ago for like our parents and everything, or our grandparents, it's like, all right, we stuck it through, whether they cheat, whether they like, you know, abuse, whatever, we're sticking it through. Whereas like, and our parents might deal with some things where we wouldn't deal with it, but like, you know, they're willing to tolerate stuff. And for us, it's even less tolerable. We're like, we're not dealing with the trauma and like the baggage that we dealt with all of these years and everything. So I think that women are initiating it from a place of like empowerment. It's just like, I know I deserve better. I don't want to waste all of my 20s and 30s like staying with you for someone who can't even like appreciate me. And what I think of is, I don't remember who it was, this is another celebrity, but she divorced her husband because he didn't bring her anything from the store. And people might think that's dramatic, but her explanation was that he never thinks of me when he's doing things, and when I go to the store, I'm always thinking of him. When I'm going to a restaurant, I always bring him something, but for him, he's only thinking of himself. So that small thing, that was the breaking point, which was just like, oh, I'm tired of this man never thinking of me and me always thinking of him. I'm like done. So I think it's women these days. I feel like for me, I've seen more so men, and I see women being like surprised a lot of the time, because I find as women sometimes we see more in the men than maybe they see in us. So I think, you know, which is fair, like it's okay for men, you know, everyone to have their own standards, but I think there's a difference between your standards potentially being too high and unrealistic, whether it's from social media or like what's perceived to be a healthy relationship, versus like on the other hand, giving people grace. You know, like no one's perfect, no relationship is perfect as much as social media may portray it to be. And I think it's just a slew of things. I see. So you're saying that you think that the men, like the women are putting the men on a pedestal and they think that they're good and everything, but the guy's not satisfied?
I think so. I think that's a lot of what I've seen, and I don't know if that's the way my feed is curated. I don't know what I liked for it to get there, but yeah, that's a lot of what I've seen.
That's interesting. And my feed has not been that. It's been all women, just like
I need to get on your feed. Let me like what you're liking, because
no, because like, but I think it's so cool to have like the different perspectives, because I haven't seen that at all. It's all been like a woman being sick of cleaning everything, woman or the marriage being fine, and then they have children and the woman's doing everything and the man is not, and then they're just like, I'm done. Or it's better for, they just believe it's better for them to be single than to deal with like a man who's not supporting of any kind. He's kind of like a third or fourth child or whatever. So I think it's interesting that, do you think the men are not like vocalizing what they want in the woman, and the women are just thinking things are fine?
I think so. And I think sometimes a lot of, I'm not gonna say a lot, but I think some men, like, I'm like, do you even like your partner? Like, are you friends with them? I feel like some men, like, they like their boys more than they like their partners, and it's like, but you like married them? Are you sure? So I think that like reciprocation is something that people should definitely like look out for, because that can like fester resentment towards somebody. So that's definitely a tip, I think, in terms of deciding, okay, is this worth still pursuing, or is it time to kind of cut things?
I see.
Things off. Yeah.
That reminds me what you'd said in terms of like maybe the man doesn't love the woman, maybe just wants someone to care and support him and just like take care of the things in the home. It reminds me of the shut up proposals. Have you seen those?
No.
Okay. Shut up proposals is when a man proposes to a woman because it's been 10 years and she's been bothering him, or the family's been bothering him. It's just like, I'm gonna give you like a shut up ring, a shut up proposal, just so that you can just leave me alone. So for example, and you know it's a shut up proposal based on how the proposal is done. So for like, I could think of 3. The first one is, what was it? It was a man at the altar who was giving his vows, and he was just like, as long as like you satisfy me, it was like keep my belly full and like my balls empty, something like that. Then like he said this in his vows.
In his vows?
In his vows.
That's all
yeah, he's like, as long as you like keep my balls empty and like my stomach full, that's all that like really matters. Yeah, we're good to go. And then the second one I can think of, I saw it, I think it was like from 4 Weddings. He allowed like, yeah, I think this one was like a messy one because
weren't they all?
Yeah, they all were messy, but I feel like this one is especially messy because he allowed like an actress, like a person who looked like they were not okay mentally, to come up the aisle as like an actor. When they said like, oh, does anybody reject like this marriage? You know what I'm talking about? He hired an actor to come and like he staged it to make it look like, what did he do? To make it look like there was somebody saying no, like, or whatever.
Objecting?
Yeah, objecting. And I'm just like, why would you do that on your wedding day? Like your actual wedding day. And she looked horrified too, so you can tell that she wasn't a part of it. And then the last one I could think of, I saw recently, it was actually in the car. It was literally, it was like, oh, walk up to the roses, like light the candle, put this dress on. It was like a bunch of notes. You saw that?
Yeah.
He's like, all right, like, will you do my laundry? Yes. And then she was just like, so you did all this for what? And he was like, oh no, open it, like, oh, we're getting married. And the comments were just like, notice how she said, oh, we're doing it for real this time, like we're gonna get married this year for real. So maybe he's trolled her before and was not being serious about their relationship. So like, that's what I'm saying, like a shut up ring or shut up proposal. So I think that leads to, if you're with somebody and it's been a few years and they haven't, if your goal is marriage and they haven't proposed and it's been like 3, 4, 5 years and you're in your mid to late 20s and everything, then you should ask yourself, like, what do I want? What do I want to do? You should never, in my opinion, it should be a conversation that you have with like your partner and everything. Exactly, continuously talk to your partner, rather than something where it's just like, when are you gonna do it? When are you gonna do it? When are you gonna do it? Like, you're gonna propose, right? You're gonna do it right now, and then, and you can tell by his demeanor or how he's speaking, that's not even like in his mind to do. So you kind of forced him to do it, and then I think that's what leads to the dissatisfaction in a marriage where she's like, oh my gosh, like I'm married, like I feel good, like this is my person, and he's kind of just like, I kind of did this.
That only lasts so long, and it's so sad to see. So I think that's definitely another tip of like things to look out for, is like whether someone's not aligned with the goals that you have, like for example marriage or like kids, like even like the ultimatum. Oh my god. Like, we won't get into that too much. It was a little crazy, but like that's a good example of, okay, maybe it is time to break up and like move on.
Yeah, I think all of the couples who are on the show should not be together, and they should have. And they are. Yeah.
So we'll see. Time will tell, but maybe they'll change. Hopefully they change. You know, I want everyone to just like learn and grow and like.
I feel like
all of that.
I feel like they say that, okay, here's my thing. They say that in reality shows, they're not depicting everything that's going on. Like, you're not getting the whole thing. But sometimes when you're showing their personalities and everything, and I've not seen a change from episode 1 to episode 12, and you seem consistent, and you're like, okay, let's just get married. I'm like, all right, this just sounds like you want to be, like, you just want to be with the person to be with the person because you're scared of losing them, rather than being with them because you like want to be with them. Like, for example,
that's so real.
Spoiler alert, have you seen season 2?
Ultimatum?
made it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had to make sure. But like Raya and Trey, for example, I think she was like, oh my gosh, I have something great. I don't want to lose him. Let's just get married. Yeah. Whereas he was just like, I wanted you from the beginning. But she also mentioned things like, I want to travel. I want to live in the city. I want to do all these things. He's like, I'm ready to get married, only because he's like, you know, a little bit older, more established and everything. But I personally think that she settled because she was just like, he's a good man. I don't want to lose him. And if I have to sacrifice maybe some of my exploration of myself and like living in the city and stuff like that, it's fine. But I don't know if it's fine for her, if I'm being real. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think that's another tip. It's like being a good person, or you guys having like an extensive history, I don't think it's enough.
Yeah.
Like there are so many other factors like finances and values and beliefs and religion and like so many other things that if they're like it's cute now, but like when life gets really tough or like kids come in, it's not gonna be that easy.
Yes,
it's not gonna be that easy.
Like not sacrificing your values and your wants for somebody else because you think it might work out. Like I've seen like I was on Reddit, like honestly I just think, like, you know, on TikTok I always said like the Reddit post. Yes, so there was a Reddit post where a woman was just like, yeah, we knew when we got married that like I wanted kids and he didn't want kids, but we just got married anyways, and now we're 10 years later and I still don't want kids, and like he wants kids or vice versa or whatever, and like we're kind of stuck. And then there's so many comments like, yeah, this happened to me, we divorced, he married somebody who wanted kids, I'm chilling right now. Like so it was kind of like these people are not going to compromise on certain values and certain things, so you shouldn't, like, it's gonna end badly if it's like that serious, especially if it's in terms of kids and everything, and you don't want to build resentment or anger. And if people who wanted or didn't want kids were building that like resentment or anger. So it's like you were saying, if you don't have the same values, you don't have like long-term goals, even like this person wants to travel 6 months out of the year and you're not that type of person, you need to make sure your values align. And if they don't, even if you do have a good friendship, even if you do have a good relationship, you have to cut it off because you're not aligned. Like and have an intentional conversation, because people might just say, oh, I'll just compromise, like I can deal with the person not being here 6 months out of the year, but your love language is like physical touch and like quality time, and they're not here, and that's affecting your perception and it's not working. So yes, the person can be a good person, yes, you can have a good relationship, and it's important not to like take it to the next level or stay in a committed relationship if you know your values don't align, because it's going to split you up at some point, even if it isn't in the present time.
Oh, that's so real and so well said. On the subject of like breaking up and deciding to leave, what has been like your worst breakup experience? Like your worst, first of all, do you feel like you're more so the one who like is like broken up with, or like does the breaking up in like your experience?
I definitely was the one who did the breaking up. I will, as a disclaimer, I got into a relationship with my now husband at 17.
So young.
We were young. So like when I say that, I mean like I've been, and now we're married. So like I've been in a long-term relationship for like a hot minute. So I just want to say that.
So you were really young when this
I was
happened.
very
Okay, that provides context.
A lot of context. So like I was in relationships. I think I was just obsessed with like, oh my gosh, I just want like I hate to compare myself to her, but you know Lydia from Love is Blind, how she just wants love, like she just wants a relationship.
Yeah, she's a hopeless romantic.
Yeah, she just
hopeless romantic. Yeah,
she doesn't care who it's with, she doesn't care how, she just
you
wants
meet someone and you like paint the whole vision.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like they're not your type and you're like, but yes, I see it.
That was me. That was me at like 13, 14, 15, especially growing up on Disney movies and everything. So I was in relationships. I was just stuck on like what it could be and everything, and I'd be with them for 2 weeks and I'd be like, I wake up one morning on a Wednesday and I'd be like, I'm all set. I literally, and with no feelings, I just text them and be like, yeah, I'm done. And they'd be like, why? Stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, I have no feelings for you anymore. Like because I was in the, I wasn't thinking of you. I was thinking of just experiencing the fun and romance of the relationship, but I wasn't really including your personality. It sounds so bad. Your personality, who you were. So to answer the question, I think the worst breakup I had wasn't even like a breakup. It was like a situationship where like I was just thinking of my past self. I'm like, you are so cute. But I was like 15, like 14, 15, and I was talking, no, 15, 16. I was talking to somebody, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I can see us together, like I can see like a life for us, like everything's gonna be great. I talked to them on and off in my brain. I was like, all right, because we like always end up talking to each other again, it means it's meant to be. It means that we're supposed to be in a relationship and everything. So I was talking to him for like several months, and I was just like, oh gosh, like I would love to date. I am the one who I pursue a lot. So I was just like, I would love to like date and everything. And he was just like, oh, like I'm not ready for a relationship right now, so on and so forth. And I was like, it's okay, I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you. So dramatic. You know, literally I was like, I'll wait for you. Like I was like, and then within that time, I was like, okay, how about we wait until like June, and like we'll talk and everything, and we'll like go on dates to see if we can feel each other, so on and so forth. And I think it hit like February, and he was just like, yeah, like, no. I prank called him. I guess he didn't like the details of the prank call that I gave him or whatever. Maybe it was offensive to him. Again, I was 15, 16. So he like stopped responding to me, period. Like stopped answering. He ghosted me completely. But me, I know it sounds like I was desperate, but I'm no desperate person. I got pride. So I was just like, I'm sorry that this offended you, and that wasn't my intention. I was just like joking around or whatever. Didn't respond. I was just like, okay, this is the last message I'm gonna send. So like, I understand if you don't want to respond to everything, but I do want to clarify, like I was joking. I'm sorry, like that it offended you and stuff like that, but whatever. Never responded, right? And that hurt me because I was just like, wow, we were talking for so long, all these other things, and it really hurt me. So healing through that, I had to like, you know, listen to music, hang out with friends who would listen to me, talk to my friends. And it was just, honestly, when I heal, it's I isolate myself. I don't like to, like I'll spend time with my friends, but spending time with my friends is a distraction. So I'm going to spend time with my friends so that I can get my mind off of things and everything. But my therapy was music and like journaling crazy about it, like writing about it. And it just like, when I think back, I knew it wasn't meant to be. Just because I shouldn't have to give an ultimatum as to when we should start dating if we've been talking for a while, you know what I'm saying? And it was, it was hard for like a couple of months, but I think just like my personal reflecting, writing, listening to music and healing just helped me to accept it. I'm proud of myself for not chasing and like running after him and like testing back and like going crazy and things like that. But I honestly can say that it is God sent, because literally I said, oh, the June or whatever, we stopped talking like in February or March. I met Eli in July. So you get the timing there. So I think ultimately, and that caused me to close into myself. So I was like, I will like somebody to the point where I can control the feelings that I'm giving out. So I will never give, in my brain I was like, I will never give all of me again. I will give it to the extent that I can control it, so that if God forbid we break up, then the healing process won't be as bad, because I'm controlling the extent that I'm... you're protecting yourself. Exactly. That didn't work out, because like when I was trying to get into just talking and like vibing with Eli, he was telling me, hey, it seems like you're hot and cold. Like some days you're in it, other days you're like completely gone. So he can tell that I was like shifting back and forth. And I think that's like another tip too. Yes, you had a relationship that was bad, or maybe it didn't work out the way you wanted it to work out. And it's important for you to not translate that hurt into your new relationship. And it's okay. Like I'm not saying like, oh, heal immediately, but take the time to heal. And those remnants will still be there, because you know it's hurt. Your body's trying to protect itself. And at the same time too, if it's to the point where it's affecting a new relationship, maybe you shouldn't be pursuing a new relationship. Maybe you shouldn't be trying to explore something new because you haven't healed from the past yet. So don't take a previous, somebody cheated on you, a previous I don't know, like miscommunication and just like drop it on this next person who has done nothing. Give the person the freedom and the grace to prove themselves in the relationship, rather than just being like, all right, this is what I experienced, this is what it's gonna be, all men are bad, everything is terrible, this is what I need to do. So that was
a lot. You were going through a lot at that age.
That was all me. I was being, like Asian say, I was being so sure to be in a relationship I really didn't need to be. But how about you though?
For me, I feel like my breakups, I feel like I tend to do the breaking up. I think I have one experience being ghosted. In those cases, it's like, we should definitely talk about, like, we'll definitely talk about tips and whatnot. Okay, I'll say that again. I think there was like one experience where I was ghosted, but like, we'll definitely get into tips of how y'all should communicate, because if you don't want to be with someone, it's always best to communicate, in my opinion. Like, you should not be ghosting people. And leaving people up to think what's going on. That's weird. But for me, I think most of my experiences were like mutual breakups for the most part, and they were pretty like healthy. I think my longest term relationship, it was very on and off, and it was very toxic in the sense where I felt like I was the cutoff queen. I'd be like, okay, we're done, and then a few months later we would like rekindle things, and then I'd be like, we're done. So that wasn't healthy either, like the on and off like breakup thing. So that was like a lot of breakups then. But I think the last one was like, I think I was like, I'm grown, let's not do this anymore, it's not working out, so let's break up for real. But other than that, it's been like pretty mutual, healthy breakups, nothing like super toxic. I feel like my relationship breakups have been smoother and like more expected than like the friendship breakups. I feel like the friendship breakups,
gosh, yes,
that's a whole nother topic. But like in terms of romantic, I feel like it was kind of just like, okay, we're done. I mean, I was salty a little bit at first, of course, but yeah, I was like, it is what it is, it's for the better. And then it's always like in hindsight, I'm like, wow, God was really working, because there was no way that would have worked now. And even now, because I think, especially early on in like my current relationship, I think whenever there was like conflict, because like I said, I was very much like a cutoff type of person with previous relationships, to the point where I would just be like, yeah, we don't have to do this anymore. And like my boyfriend would call me out on it, and he's like, that's not how this works. You can't just come up here being like, that's an option. I'm like, oh, he got me all the way together. All the way together. So now I don't do that anymore. I'm much more like, okay, let's resolve the situation, instead of being like, we're just gonna break up. Because the on and off thing, it's not healthy. So I'm grateful that he approaches it that way. But yeah, I was very unhealthy in that sense. I'd be like,
once one thing was off, you were ready to just
I'm like, you know what, we don't have to do this. And he was like, yeah, that's not how this works.
You are hilarious for that.
I'm so serious. Like, we gotta keep it real here.
Okay, why do you think your mindset wasn't going towards like conflict resolution? It was just like, all right, like, you're done.
Because that's what I was so used to. I like my relationships in the past, it was very like toxic in that sense of just like, I feel like I learned like, okay, you don't have to deal with this, you know. And they kind of like ingrained that as well, like, oh, we don't have to do this. And I was like, yeah, we don't have to do this. So like that naturally echoed into my new relationship, because I didn't heal from that. And I didn't learn like healthier ways to resolve that. So when my boyfriend asked me like, well, why do you have that reaction? I was like, oh. So I actually have to like think about why I continuously did that. And now I feel like I'm better.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's what matters.
Now I'm better. I have not said that in like years. But I used to be like, Friday, we don't have to do this.
Like, we're all set. Yeah. We're good with the relationship.
Exactly.
But I think that's a beautiful thing that like he called it out. He was just like, what are you doing? We don't need to end this.
No. I'm like, not you being healthy. What's going on? I'm not used to like healthy, you know, sane people being like, let's work it out. No, like, that's not an option.
No, literally, it's like, we're in this together, we started this for a reason, let's work through it. And I think that's another good sign that you're in a good relationship, that you can communicate with one another, you can work through problems in a way that is normal. What I mean by that is not screaming match, yelling, like going off. Being able to resolve conflict in a healthy way is a sign of a very healthy relationship. And if you're able to talk to each other and work with one another to work through issues in a healthy way rather than screaming, I think that's great, because I think a lot of people result to screaming, being petty, passive, all of the above when they have a problem, like getting revenge in some way, shape, or form, even though this person has no idea what is going on. So if you're somebody who's in a relationship and you feel like your communication is not the best, or you can't talk to them, or or maybe you're afraid to even talk to them because you just know they're not going to be receptive, and you kind of just keep the pain in, then that's a sign that you might
need to
reconsider that whole entire thing. You shouldn't be shutting down completely. He or she shouldn't be shutting down completely. So
I agree.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that.
I agree. The pettiness thing is real, because I also used to be me. And again, my boyfriend got me all the way together. All the way together. So
no,
shout out to him.
Shout out to him. Healthy relationships. But no, I think the pettiness kind of just like runs in us, because it's a way that we can punish you for not acting right. And it's very easy to do. Like, I still have to, just because you heal from something, it doesn't mean that it doesn't cross through your head, because sometimes at home I'm just like, okay, you left the shoe in front of the door, I'm gonna like put all the shoes in front of the door just so that's harder for you to, and it's just like, how about you just ask him to move his shoes, and then, like, it'll be fine.
Let's think this through.
Like, let's just talk through this. Whereas my brain sometimes she's like, let's be petty.
No, seriously, it does cross my mind, and then I'm like, let's pray about this. Brandy, come on.
It's like, we are past this. Like, let's just be healthy. So you're not wrong. Like, don't beat yourself up if you still have petty tendencies or hurt from the past, like, just pops up because maybe something that did triggered you, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, this is what it is, I'm gonna like protect myself. I think our body does a good job of protecting ourselves. So give yourself grace if you feel like you are going back to old patterns. It's just important for you to identify it, recognize that, like, I've moved past this, and just move towards the healthier standpoint, rather than just being like, oh my gosh, like, I am like going backwards or whatever in this relationship. Just give yourself grace, because people can really hurt people, and that healing sometimes can be a lifetime. So keeping that in mind.
And I know we've talked a lot about like getting to the point where you decide it's time to break up, but how do you kind of decide for yourself, okay, am I giving up too easily? Like, is this something worth holding on to? Do I need to forgive them? Am I able to forgive them? Like, is this something that can work out? What is like your advice there?
In terms of them, so advice to people who should not give up early, and like,
where it's like, oh, I want to break up with them, but it's like, okay, wait, maybe they are worth fighting for. Like, maybe I am giving up too easily, because I think the empowerment thing you mentioned earlier, I think a lot of women at times, they do give up a little too easily.
Cut off culture.
Like, I don't know, I didn't like the way he smiled, or like the icks, right? Like they just gave me the ick, like the way they picked up that piece of paper. Like,
it's like, all right, you're done.
I need to break up with them today. And that's not like realistic either, because I think again, like, social media and I think culture paints things in a way, and also people get in your head, right? Like, family, friends, they're just like, well, I don't think they're, and it's like, but you don't know them the way that I do, or like, that's not standing on good grounds. Like, if you had a really good reason, then maybe I would consider it, but that's not good enough. So
okay, I would say, okay, so first, have you talked to them about it? I feel like we,
number one,
especially as women, we live in our brains sometimes.
Yeah, we do.
And we come up with these scenarios and like reactions or responses to things that hasn't even been talked about. So I think it's important to communicate, one, what the issue is and how you can work through it. Now, if let's say you have addressed the issue, number two, I would say, is what steps were taken and are they following through on them, right? And when I say following through, you can't expect to give someone feedback and then tomorrow they're on top of it and everything's 100% perfect. So can you see them making an effort towards working on this problem? If they are making an effort, beautiful. If they're messing up a little bit more, remind them, have a conversation with them. Because I think this cutoff culture thing is where we are extending grace only for ourselves and we're giving no grace to other people. No one can make mistakes. We deserve the best. We are put on this pedestal. We shouldn't deal with anybody making any mistake. And I think that takes away from the fact that we're human. We're gonna mess up. You're gonna mess up. I'm gonna mess up. We're gonna mess up. So I think has there been steps and strides taken towards resolving the problem? And if you haven't talked to them and you just expect them to know, I think that's another thing that like us as women do, like, oh, you should know that like I don't like this, or you should know this. It's like, you know yourself, you have a standard of living, you maybe operate in this way. You can't assume that everybody else knows. Like everybody comes from different backgrounds, perspectives, family, so on and so forth. So things that are common sense to you might not be common sense to them. So I say leaving room for them to be human is extremely important. And I think this perspective works for me. I don't know if it works for everybody. If you have a good friend and like you had a disagreement with a friend or whatever, I hope that you wouldn't be so quick to just cut them off and just be like, all right, you're done. I feel like women with our friends, we give more grace than we do with men in general. So I think it's also thinking of like that, like, all right, my partner is also my friend. This is somebody that I care for. How can we resolve this in a way that, like, yes, we're in a relationship, but how can we resolve this in a way that is healthy, just like we are friends? Like you're friends in one sense, and you also have a romantic relationship. So just trying to work on it like it was a friendship, and also like there's romantic elements to it, but intertwining the two. And all in all, make sure you're giving the same grace to them that you would give to yourself. And you're not perfect, so you should not expect perfection out of them.
Yeah, I think that's so real. I think the same exact thing. Like communication is super important. Not, you know, expecting people to be perfect, like you said. And I think for me, it also comes to like a sense of comparison, because I think a lot of people break up based on what's going on in the outside world, not in the relationship. I think if there are grounds in the relationship, like of course, like violence, abuse, sexual assault, things like that, like those are grounds to absolutely like leave if you can and if it's safe. But I think in terms of like compare, like for example, I think we see a lot of exquisite dates and things like that, and I hear a lot about women saying, well, you don't do this for me, like you don't buy me roses every day, you don't take me on a yacht. It's like, I'm sorry, they're not like a multi-millionaire like the celebrities that you see. So that's, I don't think that's grounds to break up with somebody. So I think comparison can really be the thief of joy in relationships, where it's like, but so-and-so's partner did this for them. And you know, I think a lot of breakups happen in that sense as well. Yes,
the comparison, 100% the comparison game. Like, oh, this person's doing this or this person's doing better. And something I saw on social media, this is also not 100% true every single time, but the extravagant like gifts and stuff like that, like I said, the roses on the bed and like all the gifts on the bed and everything on Valentine's Day, a lot of those women came out and said like, he only treats me well in these instances for social media, but outside of that, we have like a really unhealthy relationship. So I think that just goes to say, yes, someone can have elaborate gestures and all these things on social media, or even the celebrities that we were talking about. You think these people have like a perfect relationship, but it's only what they're showing you. Why would anybody go on social media and show you like the bad things? They're only going to show you the good things. So it's important to not compare and create your own standards within your relationship. It's okay if you want to be wined and dined more, but how about you have a conversation about that? Like, all right, I want us to go on more dates, right? And also, do you want to go on more dates? Do you want to be wined and dined because that's like a value that you have, or is it something you want to show off to other people? I think that's something, like an issue that people have, because they'll be like, oh, I want this and that, just so that they can have like an Instagram reel of them like, oh, look, like, oh, my man or like my woman treats me so well and everything. And it's just like, okay, you're using this for an external value rather than like the inner values in your relationship and things you actually care for. So
it's like a competition.
Yeah, and it's just like, no,
it's not worth it.
It's not worth it at all. Like, it's not worth it. You want your values, you want your things in your relationship, have a conversation, do not compare. You don't want them to compare you to somebody else either. So focus on your relationship, focus on your strengths, focus on what you can work on to be in a better spot to where you want to be. I never say, like, yes, you can have a couple that you look up to, but I never say like, put a celebrity couple on a pedestal because you don't know what's going on in their home behind closed doors. Anybody can put on a camera and just be like, everything is great and wonderful, and then the background, once they shut it off, like who knows what's going on. So that's another perspective to understand, that social media is not the goal of where you should be in all relationships, because that goal might not even exist and might just exist within the platform that they're posted on.
Hashtag couple goals isn't all that it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, that's a fact.
At all. And I'm also curious because, you know, as Christian women, we approach dating and like relationships, I feel like, in a specific way, like with that context and background. So, like, what is your approach to breaking up with people as a Christian? And do you feel like Christian women are more likely to break up with versus stay with someone? Like, what are your thoughts kind of around that? Because I know we tend to approach dating differently and take it very serious with like courting, things like that for the most part. So I'm curious as to what you think.
I think that sometimes we expect a Jesus and a man, and it's just not realistic. I think that they should have Christ-like qualities, like the qualities of love that they have about. Love is patient, love is kind, love is slow to anger, things like that. I think they should have those qualities. As Christian women, you should definitely look for biblical characteristics. And on top of that, I think it goes back to our points where it's just like you should give the person grace in everything. I think I've seen a lot of Christian women, if they're not pretty much Jesus walking himself, they're like, no, good to go, all set, I'm not like dealing with this, I'm good. Whereas where it's just like, you're not, I don't remember what is it, the Psalm or Proverbs, whatever woman, I don't remember.
Proverbs 31?
Yeah, like, all right, well, you're not a perfect Proverbs 31 woman either. So I think sometimes, I'm not telling women to lower their standards. That is not what I'm saying at all. I think you should look for characteristics of love in the Bible and make sure this person matches up to it, but not necessarily completely cut them off if they're not like exactly like Jesus, for example.
And I think there are levels to it. Like, everyone's gonna fall short at some point. But I do agree that like they do have to have some kind of qualities that are like Christ-like, like you said. Especially like if they're pulling you away from the faith, then it's like, okay, let's reassess. Maybe it is time to cut things off. But for me, I'm actually thinking the opposite. I feel like Christian women are more likely to stay with somebody, especially if they're already dating. Because I feel like they try to embody like the fruits of the spirit, like patience and gentleness and kindness, stuff like that. And then on top of that, I feel like there is such a push and a pressure to be married in the Christian culture. So it's like, you know, we've been at this 2 years, you know, the church is grumbling around me, like we gotta shake this up. So I feel like they're more likely to stay.
That's interesting. I can definitely see that perspective too.
I see your perspective too, for sure.
Yeah, no, literally, I can see both sides of it. For Christian women, this is gonna sound so bad, but like, he doesn't have to be the picture perfect Christian. I think that we all grow in our relationship with God, and we can get to that point where maybe we leave behind certain things of the world that we were like so attached to and everything, and giving grace for it. But there's also a balance of it. If this is pulling you away from God and bringing you closer to their end and like their worldliness, and is like getting you away from God, then I believe that you should let it go. There's grace in everything, but even thinking of the perspective of Jesus, like people were on Jesus, not abusing him, but like, I mean, yeah, to some extent, like abusing him, like taking advantage of his time, energy, so on and so forth. And Jesus was just like, I'm going to leave for a little bit, or even call people out. He's just like, you don't really want me for this, you want me for like what I can do, for example. You don't actually want a relationship with me. So I think as Christian women, have grace like Jesus has grace for people, and at the same time to know when it's time to end it, know when it's time to separate and be in a healthier spot, or with like just being in a healthier spot overall. So it's a mix of the two. I've seen both, but I think as Christian women, it's just being mindful and intentional about what you're experiencing. Is it getting better? Is it pulling you away from God? And what you can do to make it better with both of you. And if it's not putting you in a good direction and it's been a while, then maybe you should pull away, even though, you know, we want to practice the fruits of the spirit, for example.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And not everyone's going to have all of the qualities that you're looking for. They might have a majority, but again, like, people are going to fall short in some ways, and I don't necessarily think that means breaking up is the solution.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So all in all, we're saying if you're trying to decide whether you want to break up with someone or not, assess your values, assess their values, and see if you align with each other. If they do not align, talk about how they can align. There's nothing wrong with compromise, but if you're compromising to the point where it will lead to resenting the person, then you should not be with them. And also on the other end, you shouldn't be so willing to just break up immediately, because we all have problems, we all are going through things, we all experience, we're just trying to do our best in this life. So ultimately, do your best to work through a problem and have the grace for others, the same one you would have for yourself, give it to others. And for Christian women, yes, look for a man that is like Jesus, and also realize that you are not perfect either, and have grace for others, work through problems similar to like the other stuff, have grace for others. And also don't hold on to it just because you see their potential and you just want to hold on to that, because that can lead to a place of despair if you're holding on to
for sure, resentment, all of that. Yeah, especially if it doesn't work out.
Exactly. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, send an email to unspokentransitions@gmail.com, and we will see you next week.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.